Okay, MDI today is just talking about naming geometric figures like rays, points, lines, planes, angles. So when you're naming a point, how many letters are needed? You only need 1 point to name, or 1 letter to name a point. And you can either call it point X or you can just call it X. You don't necessarily need the point in front of it. When you're naming a line, how many points or how many letters are needed? You need 2. And it can be any number of points on that line, and they can be in any order. So for example, if I have 5 points on the line, okay? I'm not going to call this line M-A-S-O-N, okay? I am not going to call it line M-S-N. I'm not even going to call it line M-O-N. I only need to pick any 2 points that are on that line and then just make sure that I have the proper notation. So I can call this line O-S or S-O, because remember it's reversible for lines. I could call it M-S or MN, I could call it NA, but I only want 2 points or 2 letters to name a line. Okay, same success criteria and learning intention that we've had since, I believe, Tuesday of last week, or maybe Wednesday, Wednesday probably. Again, naming different geometric figures, how many points are needed of each and what's the notation. So when you're naming an array, how many points do we need or how many letters do we need? We need 2 points or 2 letters. And the notation is just the arrow up above. So for example, like PQ would be your array. When you're naming a plane, how many points are needed? So if it doesn't have just a plain capital letter without a dot next to it, you need 3 points. And you would just label it plane PQZ. There's no other symbol, like array has a symbol, you just have to put the word plane in front of it. When you're naming an angle, how many points or how many letters do you need? You need 3 points or 3 letters. And your vertex always has to be the center letter. The notation is just the little angle symbol, and you could call it, for example, angle AXY. This would tell us that X is the vertex, so our angle would maybe look something like this. Okay, X is the vertex, it's the one in the middle. When you're naming a line segment, how many points or how many letters do we need? We need 2 points, and that would be, the notation is just a bar across the top, just a straight bar. And then when you're naming opposite rays, how many rays do you need to name? We need to name 2 rays, and in each ray there are 2 letters, so total would be like 4 rays. So for example, you could say like AP and AQ. Those 2 might be opposite rays if it looks something like this. Okay, we know that if we look at this one right here, this designates that these are lines. So we're asking, is line AE the same as line EA? So in a line, remember that these 2 letters are reversible. We can put them in any order. So yes, this is exactly the same thing. On this one, we're looking at a line segment. So is DQ the same thing as QD? Is it the same figure? Yes. In lines and line segments, the letters are reversible and it's the same thing. It's different name for the same figure. On the third one, this is a ray. So is ray NO the same thing as ray ON? In a ray, the first letter is always the endpoint, and the second letter is always the direction, the letter that it's moving towards. So this is starting at N and moving towards O. whereas this one is starting at O and moving towards N. So these are not the same thing. You cannot reverse the letters of array and have it mean the same thing. And is angle ABC the same as angle ACB? Again, no, because this is saying that the vertex for this angle is at C. The vertex for this angle is at B. So they're bending, I guess. Their corner is at a different spot. So in an angle, the middle letter always tells you where your vertex is. Okay, on this one, I just want proper notation. So name and classify two angles. So classifying is just saying whether it's acute, obtuse, right, or straight, and then naming it is using the notation and with the three letters afterwards. So one of the examples that we used in class today was QRS. So angle QRS would be its name, and then its classification would be that because it's between 0 and 90 degrees, this one is acute. So this part is the name, this is the classification. Another angle that we looked at in class today was this angle right here, so PRQ. So angle PRQ, and that angle is an obtuse angle. It's between 90 and 180 degrees. Number 2 is asking to give two different names for the same line. So it doesn't matter which line we choose, we just have to find out two different names for that line. So if we look at this line down here, we could call this line TU, for example. It also has this lowercase letter right here. We could also call it line M. These two are just different names for the same figure, this line right here. We could have chosen another line. We could have picked any 2 points on this line, or we could have named this one line N. You do need to make a distinction between the lowercase letters that do not have dots with them and uppercase letters that do not have dots with them. This is for the figure of the plane, capital letters, and lowercase letters are for the figures that are lines. Okay, give another name for SR. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, give another name for not line SR, but ray SR. So remember that the first letter tells us where that ray begins. So this ray begins at S, and it moves in the direction of R. It doesn't stop at R though, it continues to go on. So our other name for this ray also has to begin with the same letter. And it has to move in the direction of R, but since R has already been used here, we just need to find another letter that's in that same direction, which would be SP. Okay, opposite rays need to begin at the same endpoint, but they need to point in opposite directions, which means that they create a straight line. So the only one on here that fits that would be this ray right here and this ray right here. So both of these rays start at the endpoint R, but they form a straight line. They go in opposite directions. So one of those rays would be RS, and the other ray would be RP. All right, a line segment is just a piece of a line. So it just exists between two endpoints. So you can pick any 2 points that are on a line and just call those your line segments. So for example, you could use RQ, you could use TU. They can be in any order. So if somebody else picked RQ and somebody else chose QR, those would be the same line segment. So the notation, remember, is just a bar across the top, no arrows. Naming the plane in two different ways. Remember that you can either use a capital letter that doesn't have a point next to it, so we could call this one plane F. Or we could pick any 3 dots and use those, but we still have to put the word plane in front. So plane R-U-Q. And those are not the only 3 letters, and these letters can be in any order. We just have to pick any 3 points on here. And the last one, any 3 collinear points. So remember that collinear means that they're on the same straight line together. So collinear, what we're looking for is a straight line, and we're looking for 3 points that are on that straight line. So P, R, and S would be 3 collinear points. Okay, the assignment for today is the points, lines, and planes worksheet number 2. Please make sure that you have that one done when you come to class on Wednesday, and we'll see you then.